Hello, I'm going to read you 2 or 3 Vietnam poems today. This first one is called Holly Crawford. Holly Crawford was my great-great-grandfather, and he was in Birds Point, Virginia, when he sent my great-grandmother, his mother, and his sister a letter with a portrait that he had gotten from a friend who drew it with a piece of charcoal from a campfire they were sitting around. I became the owner of that picture in that letter, and here is a poem about it. It's called Holly Crawford. Holly Crawford, Camp Lyon, Virginia, October 16th, 1861. Captured by history in time-softened charcoal, your gentle schoolmaster's eyes looked out from Birds Point, Virginia. Words that you wrote by the light of a Union campfire live on in my desk. The dead march sounds through ranks of faded ink. The marshaled hosts of war, which God grant the home of our childhood may never witness. Those earnest charcoal eyes must have watched the shadows blink upon the page. Grandfather of my grandmother, you speak to me from your portrait and from your letter, talking of your war in terms of my own, and the part of you that is part of me trembles with deja vu. The next poem is a poem called Memorial Day Services, and it prepares you for what is to come. Memorial Day Services. A sudden whoosh of umbrellas at the first spattering of rain. A few appropriate words spoken from a low mound. Heads bow for prayer, rifle salute, taps. And I am standing in water up to my trouser blouses, sobbing. My friends lie still at my feet, half buried in the water, like new green shoots of rice, except they will not grow. Their innocent faces will not burn again from this tropical sun. Laughter will no more condescend to disguise the horror of those white teeth. They are the bone, the sign of things to come. The next poem is called The War. It gets down to the nitty-gritty. Okay, here we go, the war. He was in the war at the same time you were. And at that point in time, no one in Saigon could simply be a dispassionate viewer. No, that the war was really the only game in town, and way too obvious to be ignored. It was impossible for anyone to be unafraid, relaxed, or certainly bored. If your best friend didn't get shot in the morning, he would get shot later that night. And if he didn't die during the night, he would be sent back to the unit again to fight. There was nothing to suggest at the time that this was uncivilized, inappropriate, or wrong. Nothing except a few insanely idealistic hippies who had been smoking marijuana all along, and whose views could safely and without prejudice be dismissed. And the politicians, of course, were even worse and could be angrily booed and hissed. When you returned home after a year, you were a little dazed, possibly ranting and raving. Your friends and family stood behind a barrier at the arrival gate, grinning insanely and waving at the camera. What distanced them from you was the result of the horrible prize you had been given for being in the war, utterly opened eyes. I guess it is a good prize, certainly it is useful and appropriate. Rather than utterly opening them, though, I wish they had left them closed, dewy, and wet. But what of the best friend who had his green eyes utterly opened and seemed to have survived the war just like you? Well, when it came to opened eyes and growing up, what was a young soldier to do? My friend did it in Mexico with his eyes utterly open, with no one to hold him. If only I had been there, I could easily have held him and told him. How much I hated the war, and how much I loved him, but that would have meant shit. It would have showed how stupid I was for not telling him sooner when it might actually have done some good. More compelling just then would have been the needle still dripping on the motel room floor beside him. What he had learned there in the war on his own, much more vivid in his slowly melting mind than his basic training class, killing and how to do it. He finally gave it all up and let go. The last one I'm going to read today is called Closing the Door and Locking the Gate, or The Jungle, a jungle jingle. I have visited war. No, I have been war's guest. I have stayed in his house and spent from his purse. It is strange that in this life there has been only one experience, for better or for worse. Lounging here in this scary paradise, saying my vows of perpetual sorrow, the last of the angry old men, awaiting the dawn of a perpetual tomorrow. Born again, buttressed and blessed by this battlefield ritual I have willingly attended, I accept my share, my part of the passion and love that rise, sullen and wild as a monsoon river, flooding the jungle that once was my heart. I think I'm going to add one more to that because I want to show what happened to me and Michael years later. This is called Michael and Me some years later. Poppy fields, mountain streams, cottonwood, divesting us of our lassitude. Michael says with the sky in his eyes, I can't stay here. And the sky is a haze, the color of poppies, the color of seeds on fire. The fire of Michael's dreams turns in the air with cottonwood, flashes with the ripples at the bend of a stream. These things had been real: dope, war, loss. And of the three, only love is left. Coming home was a trip. It was like being born. Why was I born clenching my jaw from that hell away from home, home to hell? But we all must wake and tell our dream. I pull the pen from my ragged pocket and drag it across the page, while Michael tries to put miles between him and his rage. Okay, I hope you got something out of this, and I'll try to do something more upbeat next time. Thank you for watching and listening.